Donald Trump survives assassination attempt. Shooter killed. Trump calls on Americans to stand united. 10 billion allocated for the presidential election. Funds can be disbursed at any time. A statement from the Ministry of Finance. Unite to build the country. President extends invitation to the opposition again. Who will the Sri Lanka Freedom Party support at the presidential election? Who will the Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna support at the presidential election? Have no doubt about the election. The polls will be held on time. A statement from Anura Kumara Disanayaka. In your top story this evening, Donald Trump was rushed off stage with blood on his ear and face after a shooting during his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Charlene Benedict brings us a comprehensive report on the incident.
Former President Donald Trump has been shot in the ear while he was speaking at his rally in Pennsylvania. Now, this incident is being investigated as an assassination attempt. The attempt was carried out by a shooter who was positioned on a rooftop near the rally site. Now, Donald Trump was speaking at his Pennsylvania rally. He had his hand on the lectern. He turned right when suddenly gunshots began to ring. Now, this rally was attended by 10,000 of his supporters. It was held in Pennsylvania. The shooting happened while he was delivering his address. Before we get into more details, let's take a look at this rally at which the shooting occurred.
We have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. And it's much tougher than if it happened. We had the strongest border ever. In recorded history, we had the best border. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country.
The agents were preparing to move Donald Trump off stage after this incident, but the former president asked his Secret Service agents to wait. He punched his fist in the air and mouthed the word "fight" 3 times. Now, this prompted the crowd to cheer the words USA. One of the rally attendees were killed in this incident and 2 others were critically injured, according to the Secret Service. A law enforcement source at the site said that the shooter was positioned on the rooftop of a building close to the rally site. A video posted on social media showed the suspected Trump shooter lying down on the roof of a building. The man who is suspected to have taken the attempt on the former president's life has been named by the FBI as Thomas Matthew Crooks. Now, he was a 20-year-old resident of Pennsylvania. He has been stationed, or he was stationed at the time of the shooting on this rooftop. This is in close proximity to where Donald Trump was addressing the rally at Pennsylvania. It is from this site that the shooter had taken the shot which struck Donald Trump in the ear. Now, FBI agent in charge of the investigation, Kevin Rohack, said that the FBI is close to identifying the shooter in what they are calling an assassination attempt on the former president's life. And he expressed these views after at a press briefing after the shooting occurred.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump. It's still an active crime scene. As I mentioned, we have a number of agents on scene. We also are working closely with other federal agencies, our state partners, and our local police partners as well.
Now, getting on X, former President Donald Trump described the shooting and, of course, thanked the Secret Service and law enforcement for their swift response. Writing on X, formerly known as Twitter, Trump said, "I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I immediately knew that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt a bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America." Now, we have also received reports from foreign media quoting a witness saying that a man with a rifle was seen on top of a rooftop before shots were fired at Donald Trump. He said that the man had crawled onto the top of the building that was in close proximity to the site of the rally in Pennsylvania. He said he pointed the gunman out to the police. Let's take a look at what this witness had to say.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, "Hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle." And the police were like, "Huh, what?" Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, "Hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling." Next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this, and next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
A senior advisor to Donald Trump had questioned the amount of security that was available to former President Donald Trump and also stressed that more needs to be done to protect or ensure the safety of former President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, his opponent at the upcoming presidential election in the United States, President Joe Biden, had condemned the attack and called it sick.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody.
World leaders were swift to condemn the assassination attempt on the life of former President Donald Trump and also wish him a speedy recovery. Now, former President Barack Obama wrote on X, quote unquote, "There is absolutely no place for political violence in our democracy." Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was, quote unquote, appalled by the shocking scenes at the rally. He went on to say that political violence in any form has no place in our societies and that his thoughts were with all the victims of the attack. Also, Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe expressed his shock about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump and said that he was relieved to know that former President Donald Trump is currently safe. The president said that Sri Lankans have been at the receiving end of such violence in politics, and he urged all to adhere to laws protecting democracy. Also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called Trump a friend and wished him a speedy recovery, while saying, quote unquote, strongly condemned the incident. Violence has no place in politics and democracies. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said, quote unquote, we must stand firm against any form of violence that challenges democracy. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the shooting was, quote unquote, concerning and confronting, while Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it had left him sickened. Trudeau adds that political violence is never acceptable. Now, this is not the first time that shootings have taken place targeting presidents or former presidents or presidential candidates in the United States. In 2016, a man was arrested over attempts to snatch a police officer's gun at a Donald Trump rally and planning to shoot him. Now, similar assassination attempts dates back to 1865. In April 1865, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, was shot in Washington, D.C. President James A. Garfield was shot in Washington, D.C., July 1881. The assassination of President William McKinley was in 1901. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in downtown Dallas, Texas. The political history of the United States records information on 7 occasions regarding attempted assassinations of presidents. Former President Donald Trump has now returned to his home in New Jersey, and his private jet has landed at the Newark Liberty International Airport earlier in the day. Now, meanwhile, former President Donald Trump's campaign has said that despite the assassination attempt, he still will attend the Republican convention next week. Now, the campaign statement read, quote-unquote, President Trump looks forward to joining you all in Milwaukee as we proceed with our convention to nominate him to serve as the 47th President of the United States. Now, of course, only a limited amount of details regarding the shooter have been released to foreign media. The motive of the shooter has not yet been identified, and the Secret Service is still conducting their investigations into the matter. There are also allegations leveled at the Secret Service on how if or not they were prepared to handle a situation like this, and also the number of Secret Service agents that were deployed to protect former President Donald Trump. Stay tuned. We will bring you the latest details from all that is unfolding in the United States. Until we bring you more details, it's back to the main studios.
On to some local news now. The Ekwa Jayagamuapi Mahanuwara Public Assembly was held opposite the Kandy Public Market under the chairmanship of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Many politicians representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, the United National Party and Ceylon Workers Congress joined the event.
We love our country first, and then we love our party. When power is given, you must take it and protect the country. What else could I have done? I took over the country during a very difficult period. The SLPP supported me. I could have not made it to this point if not for them. Then the SLPP split. The majority was with Mahinda Rajapaksa and the minority left with a subordinate. What exactly happened to the SLPP? The king remained with the majority. Now the subordinates are telling me that the king is the villain of the story. If the king is the villain, then his subordinates should also be villains. I have no necessity to protect the Rajapaksas. There is only one president that I protected in the past. That is President Ranasinghe Premadasa. When my party leveled allegations against him, I was the one who stepped up. I have protected nobody else. Now I have saved the country. It is true that all these people are from the UNP, SLFP and the SLPP. We united to save the country. This has not happened anywhere else in the world. We are now slowly coming out of bankruptcy. But our journey is far from over. The GDP now is $85 million. We aim to make it $350 million by 2048. We can do this. If the SLFP is willing to match the pace of the UNP, am I to say no to them? It is the SJB that is saying that this cannot be done. Where did they come from and what are they doing? Therefore, let us unite and work together to keep this country going. I extend an invitation to both the SJB and the JVP to join us on this journey. To all the UNP members here, go and tell the SJB to join me on this journey.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party held a rally in Badulla today.
The rally began at the Badulla Wills Park this evening. The rally was held under the theme Dinuma Ratata Ekwa Perata, which loosely translates to Victory for the Country, Moving Forward Together. This is the third political rally of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
At a time when this country fell into an economic crisis, 134 members of parliament got together and appointed the current president. He is not in debt to this country as he has fulfilled the task that he was assigned to do. He is not afraid. The people who say that they are not afraid now were trembling in fear when the members of the Aragalaya came. The MPs who are here also felt the same way. It was he who protected the lives of these parliamentarians and took a strong decision when they came to burn down parliament. Therefore, the people will decide who is not in debt and who is not afraid at the upcoming election. Let's make this alliance a decisive factor at the upcoming election. That is what we want.
The Colombo District Conference of the United Republic Front was held in Maharagama today.
The conference was attended by the leader of the United Republic Front, Partali Champika Ranawaka, and politicians from both the government and the opposition.
දවස පුරාම එකින් එකට යනවා එක එක්කෙනා විවස්ථාවට විවරණ ඉල්ල යනවා කොහාටද ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණ.
We can see people going to the Supreme Court daily seeking interpretations of the Constitution. The general public now have a suspicion as to if this presidential election will be postponed, similar to how they postponed the local government election. They are suspicious as to if they will do something to extend this term of the president from 1 to 2 years. I must say one thing, you cannot play those games with the general public of this country. Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa learnt their lesson on the 9th of May and the 9th of July. The people of this country are tolerating these with the intention of making a proper decision at the upcoming presidential election and the general election thereafter. Therefore, please do not obstruct that. If you are obstructing that, that will empower anti-democratic groups. The United Republic Front will fight against this on all fronts. There can be many waves, but we have not yet created the beach for the waves to clash with. We will create this beach that will clash with the waves soon. Then all of these waves will be destroyed. We are not fielding the fourth candidate. We will be fielding the winning alternative candidate.
National organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Namal Rajapaksa said that the SLPP will launch their program to win the next election after the Election Commission proclaims the election.
The Diulapiti Electorate Conference of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held today under the leadership of SLPP National Organizer Namal Rajapaksa.
Today there is an uncertainty about the presidential election. Some people have remembered about the 19th Amendment long after the 20th and 21st Amendments were passed, and after a president was elected, he left and another one was elected. Now suddenly they remember about it with a week left. There are such intelligent people in our country. They have remembered to question whether it's 5 years or 6 years in a term with only a week left. There's a few days left for the Election Commission to proclaim the date. If the 19th Amendment was passed in a wrong way, they should have taken care of it at that time. We will launch our program to win the next election once the Election Commission announces the election date.
The felicitation ceremony for students of the Galle IT campus of DP Education was held this morning. The ceremony was held under the auspices of DP Education founder Damika Pereira.
The felicitation ceremony for about 10,000 students of the IT campus of DP Education was held at the Samanala ground in Galle.
This is about a program that will end in victory, not something simply for me. When a major political party in Sri Lanka makes a decision, they choose a winning strategy. Therefore, we anticipate that the candidate who presents the most compelling winning program will have the opportunity to step forward. I don't believe it's a challenge at all. No one has presented a viable plan to fix the economy yet. If given the opportunity, I will strive to clearly demonstrate to the people of this country the exact nature of the problems and their corresponding solutions. I am not someone who simply identifies issues. I provide answers. You must vote for the candidate who presents a clear economic program. If you vote for someone who only speaks of issues, voters may be left with unanswered issues for years to come. Therefore, a proper economic plan and a quality education for young children are essential. I believe most families will choose a leader who can guarantee a good education system for their children.
Leader of the National People's Power, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, highlighted that the presidential election must be held on time. He expressed these views at the National Conference of the Paramedic Professional Association in Colombo.
Lanka සිදුවන තීව්‍රතම දේශපාලන ගැටුමේ අද්දර අපි මේ ඉන්නේ.
Sri Lanka is on the brink of its most intense political conflict ever. An unprecedented amount of money, estimated by some at 13 billion rupees, is being poured into this election. The potential for conflict with the democratic process is alarming, with threats to the minimum democratic standards. The constitution mandates that the presidency cannot be vacant, while other elections conclude before a specific period. The presidential election is scheduled a month earlier. The constitution clearly vests executive power in a president elected by the people. Yet there are attempts to challenge the basic principles through legal maneuvers. The Supreme Court has consistently ruled on the number of votes required, but now there is a new challenge questioning the validity of the 19th Amendment itself. This is despite it being the legal framework for the past 9 years, including the terms of Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe. It is evident that there is a concerted effort to obstruct a necessary political transformation. However, the electoral process is moving forward. The Election Commission will be empowered by the end of this month and will subsequently proclaim nomination and election dates. There is no doubt that elections will be held between September 17th and October 16th. The election is happening. It's time to vote. Don't doubt that. Let's face it.
එනිසා ඒ ගැන අපි දැන් නැවත ඡන්දෙ තියේද නැද්ද කියලා කිසි දෙගිඩියාවකට සැකයකට අවිශ්වාසයකට එන්න එපා. ඒක පැවැත්වෙනවා. අපි දැන් ඒකට මුහුණ දෙමු.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa stated that Sri Lanka must be transformed into a centre of international education.
පැරණි ඉතිහාසයේ සිට අපේ රට අධ්‍යාපන කේන්ද්‍රස්ථානය. අපේ අරමුණ සක්වල වැඩසටහන මූලාරම්භයක් හැටියට ක්‍රියාත්මක කරලා දැවැන්ත රාජ්‍ය.
Our country has been a centre of education since ancient times. I must say that by launching the Sakvala program, our aim was to transform our country into an educational paradise in the modern world through extensive government and private programs. We need to introduce a syllabus that prioritizes new trends. I do not mean to imply that aesthetics is unnecessary in our curriculum. On the contrary, aesthetics is crucial for cultivating a humanitarian and a sensitive generation. In the name of free education, I propose a new education system centered around the English language and incorporating modern technology. This approach will address global challenges and fulfill the dreams of our children.
ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂා කේන්ද්‍රීය අධ්‍යාපනය අපේ දූ දරුවන්ගේ සිහින සැබෑ කරවන නූතන ලෝකයේ අභියෝග ජය ගන්න අලුත් අධ්‍යාපනයකට
The opposition leader expressed these views at the Kanahena Borulugoda Mahavidyalaya in Avisavela during the Sakvala Smart Classroom program to provide smart classroom equipment. 100,000 rupees was also donated to the School Development Fund.
The Supreme Court is set to consider a fundamental rights petition filed by attorney Aruna Laksiri regarding the presidential election. It will be taken up before a 3-member bench tomorrow.
The fundamental rights petition filed with the Supreme Court highlighted irregularities in the passing of the 19th constitutional amendment. The petition revealed that the amendment has not undergone a formal referendum process, despite a Supreme Court bench suggesting such a referendum. The petitioner is seeking a judgment that holding a presidential election prior to the referendum would contravene the constitution. Attorney Aruna Laksiri filed the petition listing the Election Commission, its members, the Secretary General of Parliament, Parliament and the Attorney General as respondents. The petition argues that the 19th Amendment lacks legal standing as it has not been signed by the President following approval in the referendum. Meanwhile, the Election Commission has verbally requested the Attorney General to represent the NEC in the petition. The Ministry of Finance said that 10 billion rupees have been allocated for the presidential election. A senior spokesperson said that funds can be issued upon request for presidential election expenses. Finance Ministry officials have also been summoned to appear before the Election Commission on the 17th of July. Meanwhile, the hard copy of the 2024 electoral list is set for publication next week. Sri Lanka Police has also decided to call for reports of estimated expenses for the police for the upcoming presidential election duties. Police said that an estimate of the overall costs related to the security arrangements will be directed to the Election Commission immediately. Police added that security will be provided as requested by the Department of Government Printing for the printing of ballot papers for the presidential election. This was held during a discussion between the head of the Department of Government Printing and the officers in charge of the police division. Chairman of the Election Commission, RMAL Ratnayaka, confirmed that the date for the presidential election will be proclaimed before the end of July.
The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 2 days.
The power of the people. Ready to lead, ready to win. Jatika Janabala Vegaya.
An extraordinary gazette was issued declaring public transport services and the provision and maintenance of facilities for transport services as essential services. This is according to the powers vested to the President in Article 2 of the Essential Public Service Act No. 61 of 1979. According to the extraordinary gazette issued, public transport services for passengers or goods and the provision and maintenance of facilities for transport services by roads, bridges, culverts and railway lines will be essential effective yesterday. The extraordinary gazette was signed by Secretary to the President, Saman Ekanayaka. The Mood of the Nation survey conducted by Verity Research has shown that the approval of the government has tripled to 24% in July.
According to the latest round of the Gallup-style Mood of the Nation poll of Verity Research, over 3 times as many people approve of the government and feel better about the economy and the country's economic trajectory compared to 4 months ago. The survey revealed that the approval rating of the government more than tripled to 24% in July, up from 7% in February 2024. According to the survey, current economic conditions were rated as either good or excellent by 28% of respondents, marking a threefold increase from 9% in February 2024. The poll also shows that the share of people who believe that the country's economic conditions are getting better has also tripled, with 30% of respondents holding this view, up from 9% in February 2024. The positivity in July 2024 is around the same level or a little higher than it was in June 2023, which was the highest level recorded since January 2022. The Mood of the Nation poll was based on a nationally representative multi-stage randomized sample of 1,038 Sri Lankan adults from separate households and was carried out from the 28th of June to 6th of July.
People took to the streets to express their anger over the current state of affairs and corruption with government.
Once again on a Sunday evening, these protesters are back again on the streets of Timirigasaya, demanding for a country free of corruption, demanding for justice and also a good governance. Also, these protesters strongly highlighted that the elections should be held on time.
I just have one thing to say. We want elections. Stop sending your proxies with various court cases and trying every trick in the book to delay elections. Face the people. We want elections now.
We see as elections are coming closer, there is so much of happenings in Sri Lanka right now. There are murders that are happening during daylight. Now, this is a huge risk for everyone. We need to look into two aspects. One is who are the presidential candidates. Number two is the corruption and so much killings that are happening. Unless we can put these things into correct order, we cannot say that we see anyone who's capable of running this country.
State Minister of Foreign Affairs Tharaka Balasuriya said that Sri Lanka has given an assurance that it will not allow any country, including China, to use it in a way that harms India's security concerns.
I'm sure India will have security concerns. It's natural when you're becoming a bigger and bigger power, more important player in the world politics to have concerns. But from Sri Lanka's perspective, we have given an assurance that we will ensure that no country uses Sri Lanka in any way to harm India's security concerns. Of course, that does not mean that we don't want to trade with China. India trades with China too. India's trade volume with China is so much more bigger than Sri Lanka's trade volume with China. So I think we need to have a distinction between what's harmful for India's security concerns and trade. And when it comes to trade, we are open to trade with everybody.
The State Minister stressed on the alignment between Sri Lanka and India in terms of increasing connectivity between the two countries, and also said that there is a need for changing the current financial and political architecture of the world, which he called a second World War winners club.
India has said that in this changing world order, and we see new geopolitical equations emerging, how do you see Sri Lanka's role and really the global south? And could India position itself as a leader here in terms geopolitically as the world order changes?
If you look at the current world order, it's a second World War winners club. Okay, now I believe that for example, the United Kingdom at the time of in 1945, they control about 10% of the world's GDP, largely thanks to India. And in terms of the population, also they had a large population. But now, if you look at in terms of the percentage of the world's GDP, and in terms of the world population, they are not as significant. But it's not just a question of India. If you look at the African countries, the African countries are not represented. They don't have a veto voice in the Security Council. The Latin American countries don't have a voice in the Security Councils in sense of the permanent membership. So certainly, I think that both the political architecture and the financial architecture needs to change. And I think India certainly has a very large role when it comes to, if it wants to play be a leader in the global south, and it has been a leader in the global south.
An event to celebrate President's Counsel Rienzi Arzakularatne completing 50 years at the bar was organized by his junior lawyers at a hotel in Colombo yesterday.
President's Counsel Rienzi Arzakularatne served as a state counsel at the Attorney General's Department and went on to hold the position of Deputy Solicitor General and Additional Solicitor General. He also served as the Director of the Bribery Commission of Sri Lanka and also as the head of the Crimes Division at the Attorney General's Department. President's Counsel Rienzi Arzakularatne left the Attorney General's Department in the year 2003 and is currently part of the private bar. He also held the position of Director of Hatton National Bank for a period of 3 years. The event to mark 50 years in the bar for President's Counsel Rienzi Arzakularatne was attended by His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya, Attorney General Parinda Ranasinghe, justices from the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, judges and attorneys, among others.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. Thank you for watching. Take care. Good night.